Hi, we're back again another day. And I hope you don't hear my kids in the back. Um, so today I have pseudo prepared something. I don't like when I'm like looking down. I feel like you're looking at my nose. Um, I have prepared something to talk about today, and hopefully it will be 10 minutes or less. So, yesterday I was talking about, what was I talking about yesterday? Talking about calling on the name of the Lord. I do remember that. And then I also was talking about it was rambling and I didn't prepare anything, so I don't remember what I said. But today I got something and instantly I was like, okay, I'm writing it down. Today I'm gonna write something down. And I just wrote out a little bitty scrolly thing. So here we go. So the first I want to start off talking about goodness and why it matters that we have it and what the purpose of it is. So, which sounds like, oh, this is huge. This is a huge topic. It's really not. It's just kind of a big picture situation, um, which is, I don't know, kind of my gift, you could say. So, what is the purpose of goodness? Because when you think about it, goodness in heaven is about what? I mean, it's worth nothing because everything's perfect. You're perfect, God's perfect, everything's perfect. So, um, does it come natural or is perfection one step above goodness? I don't know. But the point is that goodness is for the earth. Um, and the reason why we have goodness is because, first of all, it's just a byproduct of being made in the image of God. And I think everybody has access to goodness just by being a human made in the image of God living on the earth. And, I think when people say, if you ever heard people say people are basically good, they're talking about our universal tendency towards, wanting to make sure everyone's happy, feeling each other's feelings, wanting to stand out, wanting to do a good job, wanting to be loved and accepted, and um, wanting to communicate, and all of these sort of God given attributes, which aren't necessarily in and of themselves goodness, I would say. I think they're just these kind of innate tendencies that we all relate to. We want to be productive. We have these urges um, that are, when they're enacted in the earth, they produce things that everyone can enjoy. So I guess in a way, yeah, that would a lot of those things would be considered goodness. But then there is, well, okay. So let me finish that thought. So when we have actual goodness, the goodness that comes from, what has been given to us by God as, you know, the Ten Commandments, things like that, things that are good. Um, what that does is preserves the soul, and it also preserves the earth. So, like when Jesus said, I don't know if you guys know that the salt of the earth comes from the Bible, but it does when you're talking about someone who's the salt of the earth. I think, though, that has kind of gotten lost over time as well, as far as the original meaning of that. I think most people think that means a down to earth person. Um, but like salt of the earth means someone who's just good, and it's just they're good people, and you just don't even worry. Um, and they're just put them in any situation, and their goodness is going to come out. That's salt of the earth. Well, why are they called that? Because there is a parable that Jesus gives where he talks about you are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. No one hides a light under a bushel. but they put it out on display for everyone to see. You know, it's on a mountaintop, so where everyone can see it. Talking about the nature of light, which I'll probably do a video on that as well because it's super interesting to me. I think I've already done one, but um, and then he says, what good is salt if it loses its saltiness? It's only good for being trampled onto the ground and thrown out, basically. So salt, we all know, preserves. It does a number of jobs. I think there's a really, really good sermon out there about what salt meant in the ancient world. Um, the type of jobs that it was doing a lot of jobs. So there's also been a lot of controversy around who the intended audience was for this parable, because he's like, you are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. Who is he talking to? Is he talking to the disciples? Is he talking to the crowd? Is he talking to believers listening or reading this hundreds of years later? And I think I've actually done a video on that, and my consensus was he's talking to anyone who's listening, because anybody who would be listening to Jesus' words is someone who would be drawn to them and want to hear what he has to say. So anybody who's up for the job, anyone's volunteering, anyone who's listening and putting it in practice is the audience. Um, but basically, he's saying that the righteous preserve, and that's uh, really the job of goodness in the earth. So these people who say that morals are relative, who's to say, and you go to this place and that place and they're all different, which is really not true. There's some differences that come about by this or that, but the amount of cohesion across time and space is really notable. We don't even really we take it for granted. We could all, if we really all had different ideas of what's good and bad, this place, I mean, you couldn't imagine. So there is a profound amount of cohesion actually on what is right and what is wrong. I think we take for granted how confusing and how chaotic this place would be uh, if our ideas of right and wrong were rooted any differently than they are. So, so basically, like, I guess in keeping with that same point, let's say that goodness becomes overthrown, which has happened, I guess, in certain times in history. Um, that is going to be, I mean, if you have studied any history at all, you know what kind of hell that would be, um, and how short of a time humans would have on the earth if goodness just went by the wayside. So, goodness is prolonging the earth, and it's keeping the generations going so that more people can be saved, because goodness also preserves your own soul. Um, and so a lot of people think, I hear a lot of people say today, like, why would you impose your beliefs on everyone? Blah, blah, blah. First of all, someone is imposing their beliefs on everyone. Who's it going to be? That's number one. Number two, I think that we inherently understand, and we don't realize that people probably don't or are refusing to understand that, um, because the purpose of goodness is preservation, it's not so much that these are the best things to do for everybody. These are going to make the most people happy. These are the rules that are the people that are trying to implement, the Judeo-Christian values are people who understand that we need to get people out of from here. They need to be able to go transition over to heaven after this place is over. So they're more likely to be able to actually make it if they never engage in the evil things that will take their soul and, damn them for eternity. So the rules, the values of goodness and the emphasis on goodness is for the hereafter, just inherently. It's not for today. But a lot of people think that that's a scam. Well, they think that's a scam because they're full of sin, which we will also get to. But you know, it's funny because when those values are tainted and people stop valuing goodness or thinking, oh well, there's different ways to be good. Oh well, nobody cares about this anymore. This doesn't really help anybody. Oh, it's patriarchal, whatever. And we get rid of those things, and people never ever see the parallels between the things that are missing. And they're going, what happened to this? How come people don't do this anymore? Where's this and where's that? And they always find a way to blame it on something else and not literally just the removing, because we are contending with a sin nature, and being good doesn't come naturally to us. um it's like you have to you have to think about the future. You have to do things because God wants you to. You have to have a new reason to do things because you don't have your heavenly nature where it just comes naturally to you to be perfect and do the good thing and the right thing. So you have to have love for God, and you have to be like, I'm going to just let this person say what they need to say because of God. I'm going to let this person, I know that they're trying to cheat me, but praise the Lord, I'm going to just let them have it. I know that this, it's like you have to have another incentive because you don't have it inside of you naturally because you have a sin nature. So the rules that God has taught us are for this earth. We're not going to be doing this stuff in heaven because we're not going to need to do this stuff in heaven. The stuff that's going to transfer from here to there is the eternal things that are, it's like there's certain feasts that we're still going to be celebrating up there. Jerusalem is going to be the place to be, and He's going to remake it. It's like there's things that are going to stick because they have certain significance to God, but like a lot of this stuff is not even going to be. We're not going to have to deal with this anymore because a lot of these things are here for our preservation. They're not here because, yes, they are inherently good. Yes, it's inherently part of God's nature. Humility is a part of God's nature. It's not like we won't need humility anymore. And what I'm saying is we won't have to strive to be that way anymore. So let's talk about the sin nature a little bit. So, what is that? Okay, I feel like everyone kind of knows what it is. Um, we know what the Bible teaches, we know what theology teaches, but I don't know why people are not sort of trained, or they have no interest in talking about the practical analysis of it and seeing it in your actual life or seeing it in the actual world. But yeah, the sin nature is, you know, is it the opposite of everything that's good? Kind of. Yeah, basically. Um, we can argue all day about how it got here, but the reality is there's a dual situation going on. And it's not just good people and evil people. Everyone has this dual nature about them and can be exploited in either direction. Your goodness can be exploited, your weaknesses can be exploited. Um, but um, regardless of that, the way that the sin nature is able to exist is, well, I'll say that it thrives in darkness, and denial is an aspect of darkness. It's lying, it's obfuscating, it's burying the truth. Denial is that. So I was thinking about, this was a while ago, but I was thinking about, the law the law of God really was like a revolutionary thing because, um, before that, people were just doing what they felt like they should do. And if you were a good person, you did good stuff mostly. And if you were a bad person, you did bad stuff mostly. And that's just how it was for a while. And then the law comes along and puts something in writing and says, like, hey, first of all, narrowing down to 10 things, I think I've talked about this before, is kind of amazing. Now, there is a more extensive law, but to sort of narrow down all aspects of human behavior and only give 10 rules for how to live is like, I don't know that any human person would be able to do that. And to be able to outline, like, listen, you do these 10 things right here, you're good. And then Jesus came and narrowed it down even further to two. Like, that's insane. So, but so God illuminates what the law is in the earth of what will produce goodness and what will produce blessing. That's a huge, 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 huge piece of information, which is probably a reason why he didn't give these people these laws in the beginning. In fact, first of all, Adam and Eve had no laws. Let's talk about that. They had no laws except for just multiply. That was it. And don't eat that tree. We see how that went. But then when he redoes the whole thing with Noah, it's very, very low on rules. It's just kind of, don't murder. And I forget what it is, but it's really just kind of like this one little lecture at the beginning. So, so that is that. So for between Noah and Moses is like generations. So there's generations that went by without any rules whatsoever. And why he did that, I think part of it is, the waiting for the promise. Abraham came along, and this whole tradition of faith and belief happened. So I think he was waiting for that faith movement, not movement, but that faith to be born in that family, in that lineage. And so all the other stuff that had to be done could be done. They could become a people, because at that point they were just really just one big family, a clan, I guess. I don't know. Um, so once the people group was born, then we get the creation of the, I don't want to say dogma, but um, so the law comes. It's revolutionary, but it added another aspect to reality where it sort of caged the sin nature, where before it was kind of free to do whatever in whoever. And the law sort of made it like, listen, whoever among you is righteous or wicked, it doesn't matter. You have to follow these laws because you're all of this lineage and you're all here and you're all, you were slaves and now you're free and I've freed you. So now this is what you're all going to do, regardless of whether this is your inclination or not. So the wicked were probably struggling. The wicked among them were struggling because, um, God brought order and righteousness where there was none. I mean, these people were about to go sacrifice a calf and do all of those stuff. So, getting them acquainted with faith, acquainted with miracles, acquainted with, you're not going to have to do all of these sketchy things to get what you need. I'm going to provide that. You just keep my laws. And them sort of trying to become accustomed to that, right? So the problem with that, or I won't say the problem with that, but um, even though God brought them this holy law and sort of illuminated all of the holy true things in the world, you could still they were outward things. It was bringing your sacrifice. Here's a sacrifice for these type of sins. Here's a sacrifice for these type of sins. Here's how you go to the priest. Here's the times. Here's the feast, and doing all of these things, and leaving the Sabbath, holy, and all of these things you had to do. Well, you could still be an a-hole in your mind and do all of these things. Even though we see through the prophets, like, obviously that was never God's intention, to just be able to sort of coast through, do the things that you're supposed to do. I think that what happens over time naturally is that it was understood that if you were doing those things, you were doing them from your heart, basically, because um, when God brought the law down, it's like everybody was like, yeah, we're into it. And they got up on the mountain and they were like, well, we will do these, we will follow these laws. And it was very, it was a profound thing. So it started out this profound thing. Well, generations go by. Now it's just a thing that you do. You don't know why you do it. It's just a thing that's done, that your fathers have been doing. So now you're doing them because they're just rote and you know to do them. Naturally, you just kind of automatically do them, but you kind of have a shitty attitude about it or whatever. And so you can sort of get by doing the things. And eventually it did break down to where it wasn't enough. You can't just have the freaking gods from other nations and then go and bring your sacrifice. It's like, really, bro? Like, that's not, what are you doing? But I think there was this, sin was still able to thrive in that environment a little bit internally, because everything was about an outward whatever. And so what am I trying to say? Oh, okay. So then Jesus comes along, right? And I think part of the reason why it was so revolutionary was that um we still do consider it revolutionary, and like, but I don't think we understand how revolutionary it was at the time, because everything was about works and doing things overtly, and we still do get caught up in the works thing. Sorry, I knew that was going to happen. We still do get caught up in the works thing, but I mean, that was their life. So when Jesus says something like, hey, instead of taking that sacrifice or whatever, why don't you go and see if your brother has anything against you and deal with that first, instead of going to the synagogue? Or don't pray, long and out loud or whatever, like the sinners like to do. Pray in your closet. So Jesus is bringing it to a place of internal intention. So before, sin was able to run around rampant. Then God brings the law down and sort of puts a damper on that a little bit, and brings order and righteousness and illuminates what's true. Well, then sin is like, well, at least I can talk in here. At least I can exist in here. Well, Jesus says, actually, no, because God is looking at your heart too. And here's, the Holy Spirit is going to come after I die, and he's going to dwell in there. So it's going to be light in there too. So now sin is like, well, the sin nature is just really struggling now. Really hot heat. Because the light is encroaching upon the territory. So I say all that to bring us to the modern day, because I think that, and this is also part of the reason why I feel like time is really, really short for realsies, because where else is there for sin to be able to have its rule and reign? If the law is known, now we don't have an excuse there. Jesus has come and given us a spirit that is supposed to come and guide us into all truth. So can't live in denial there. So what I have noticed, or what I'm understanding, is the point of these movements of, the scientism and postmodernism and all of these movements is sort of a reaction against um, righteousness, a reaction against the church, anyone who is willing, who wants to do good out there, because along with technology, along with certain things that have enabled the church to advance, because a lot of people, want to talk about the Catholic Church and all of these the Crusades and all of the stuff that kind of has gotten whatever over time. But when the printing press was invented, that put a big dent in a lot of plans. Um, so a big dent. Like when people started becoming literate and people started being able to make copies fast of things, that was a big blow to the kingdom of darkness. Because now you have light being able to be spread so fast, so quickly, and people have been sort of dying. It's been like repressed sin, just evil, really. Um, has had this huge dominance for so long, confusion and just all of this stuff, and then people are so thirsty to be able to know the truth, see it, be empowered by it, and to say no and to rise up. So that required a new strategy. And what I see the strategies now in the last couple of years, hundreds of years, whatever, generations, is okay, I can't, we can't hide the sin. We can't hide our sin within ourselves. We can't hide within our own hearts. So now we're just going to um, lie to ourselves, and we're just going to lie in our minds, um, which has always been around. It's not like, um, you know, what do you call it? Conscious. I forget what it's called, but it's where you are conscious of what you're rejecting. That's always been around, but now, with all the different things that God has put into place, it's making it very, very difficult and very, very uncomfortable to be without an excuse. Because we love to say that we didn't know. Oh, I didn't know that, or how was I supposed to know? Oh, it's so difficult. It's so whatever. So now people are just lying to themselves about everything, and we see like I don't know. It's almost like a counterfeit gospel or something, where Jesus, yeah, he saved souls, and we obviously Christians are going to talk about it from that perspective, but for the wicked, it was a bad day. It was a bad day. He took away their hiding spots. So we see the hiding spots being restored through um, just self deception. And it's not just the enemy, it's not just the devil, although to make himself invisible was kind of a pretty amazing idea. Kudos to him for that, because that was brilliant. But it's also the people who have chosen their wicked nature over their God nature. They're looking for a way out, and Satan is like, "I got you. Come with me. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna lie our asses off together," basically. So, like, I think about, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Yuri Bezmenov, talking about the demoralization of America and using certain things to infiltrate, using these tactics to, which have been used for a long time now, using tactics on populations that you're at war with. And on one level, yes, that's what you need to do when you're at war. Um, and men have their own reasons for doing that. But I think that larger than that, the reason why they even have these weapons of war at all are because of the devil, and the devil has his own reasons for doing what he's doing. Um, and people themselves have their own reasons. And I think the the melding place is self-deception so that you're able to do whatever evil you want to do without being bothered. And I think that the wicked, I mean, it's a weird thing to be having an empathetic feeling for the wicked, but I think that they have just really been suffering for a long time, and they have wanted to just be free of having to think about God and goodness and um, the stuff that they are just not interested in, and still having this pesky guilt and this pesky conscience that they just really not have been using, and it's just making them feel bad, you know, and they don't want to feel bad, and they just want to be free of it. And I think that um, the demoralization that has just gone so far advanced now to the point where people literally can't we can't even agree on what justice is, what goodness is, what breaking the law is anymore. Um, there's no coming back from that. Is basically what I'm saying. There's no coming back from that, and um, you know, yeah, we're going to grow in this miscommunication, but something's going to has to give. We can't live together, the wicked and the righteous. The wicked aren't ceding any ground. They're not giving anything back. So, and we're not strong enough to take it back. I mean, the victories that we had back in the day, we were a different crop of people. So, we're just deluding ourselves if we the fact that we think that we can get up and rise up and do what the men of 50 years ago, 100 years ago did before they, while they were still knew what hard labor was and didn't have cars, let alone internet, phone, Xbox, whatever. It's just like, dude, we're dead in the water, at least in America. We need to call on God. That's all we have left. We're feeble and we need God to come and save us. Period. So this is basically another way of saying call on the name of the Lord while you still can, so that you can be saved, because it does work. You need faith. That's the only thing you have in your arsenal right now. You don't have strength. Obviously, our prosperity is an illusion at this point. You don't have the connections, you don't have the money, you don't have the knowledge even of what's going on behind the scenes, because there's so much lies, so much corruption, so much they're not telling you. They're just hurting you here and there. Um, so God is our only hope at this point, and um, we need to uh, really just focus on that and make that our priority and just get ourselves ready and mentally prepared to do that. Because whatever tools that we have been already been, um, you know, infiltrated, I guess. That's not quite the word, but so yeah, so I still talked long anyway. And yeah, I think I did wrap it up pretty well to my initial point, even with all that. So I'm going to leave it alone. God bless y'all. And I'll be back tomorrow, I guess.